Good evening, America, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ace. If this is your first time joining me, welcome and good luck. We have a lot to talk about tonight, and because our network is too cheap to pay for more than 7 minutes of airtime for a weekly report on student development theory, and would rather dedicate all this money to another show called The Daily Report with Jon Stewart, we're going to move kind of quickly. So strap in and let's go. Tonight on SCT Weekly, I'll be giving you a brief overview of our readings from Evans, and I will be wrapping it up with Chickering 7 vectors and leaving you with a few questions from our reading. Now first, let's do what any good news source does and give you nothing but opinions based on partial information that they have received. Looking at you, Fox and CNN. So, in our textbook from Evans, Chapter 3, we talk about different theories relating to psychosocial development of identity theory. First theory we talk about, Erikson's, whose work is based partially off of Freud. Now, if any of you know Freud, he's considered the father of psychology. Anyways, it's appropriate for them to be giving a nod to Freud, especially since Erikson used part of his information to create his own unique theory on identity development. And Erikson, he likes to focus on the development of adolescences to adulthood, and it consists of 8 stages, which I'm going to list but not define because you guys can do that. I think you guys got that. Basic trust versus mistrust, number 1. Number 2, autonomy versus shame and doubt. Number 3, initiative versus guilt. Number 4, industry versus inferiority. Number 5, identity versus identity diffusion. Number 6, intimacy versus isolation. Number 7, generativity versus stagnation. And number 8, integrity versus despair. Now, Erikson proposed that identity both connotates a persistent sameness within oneself, which is referred to as sameness by him, and a persistent sharing of some kind of essential character with others. Alright, now we have James Marcia's ego identity statuses consisting of 4 identity states or ways of balancing crisis and commitment, as he puts it. We've got foreclosure, moratorium, identity achievement, and diffusion. Again, going over a brief overview, I'm not defining these. And for the last part of Chapter 3, we discuss Josselyn's theory. I'm going to go with Josselyn's. Josselyn set out to understand the internal and developmental roots of identity information and formation in women. She also had 4 items which she denotes as pathways. Purveyors of heritage being number 1, pavers being number 2, daughters of crisis being number 3, and identity diffusions being number 4. So, of these 3 theories, what is a theory anyways? That's for y'all to figure out, but I'm going to use the word theories pretty freely here. I found that James Marcia's to be the most beneficial in being able to relate to college students. From personal experience, I was able to take quite a few notes in there and be like, hey, yeah, I can see this happening all the time with my students. And so, since you know this is a news source, you know I have to just do this. I've got to give you a bunch of partial information mixed with plenty of opinion, and it allows you, the people, to make gross assumptions. So I'll leave it with you with that. Alright, and my favorite part of the entire readings was talking and reading about Chickering 7 vectors. We had 2 readings on that, one being a article from Chickering / Reisner themselves, Reeser. Chickering and Reeser. I'm going to go with that. Chickering and Reeser themselves, and it kind of is a brief overview of the entire Chickering 7 vectors. I think the book did a great job. I didn't think I needed to read the Chickering's overview. I did. It was great. It just reaffirmed everything in a slightly more expansive form. So I'm pulling most of my stuff out of Evans here. Alright, there's a lot going on with Chickering 7 vectors, so let's continue this trip. First, Chickering used the term vectors because each seems to have direction and magnitude, even though the direction may be expressed more appropriated by a spiral or of steps than by a straight line. Basically, what he's saying is his model isn't exactly, the model and development isn't all that linear. Alright, and second, these 7 vectors are the following: developing competence, which is paramount according to Chickering, managing emotions, moving through autonomy toward interdependence, developing mature interpersonal relationships, establishing identity, go figure, developing purpose, and developing integrity. Alright, here's what you all have been waiting for. Keeping Chickering 7 vectors in mind, and think about the culture of here at VSU. What type of program do you think is necessary for students at VSU to further their development? This can be a campus-wide program. It could be even a departmentally focused program. Doesn't matter. But what type of program do you think students at VSU need to develop themselves further? And that's it for me. For myself here at SDT News Weekly, good night and stay classy. Ace out. So 7 key factors that go into this, and 3 more anemone. Really know what I'm trying to say is admonitions. Admonitions. I should look that word up. Alright, so there's a lot going on with Chickering 7 vectors, and I mean a lot. So strap in and let's continue to go. First, Chickering used the term vectors because each seems to have a direction and magnitude, even though the direction may be expressed more appropriately by a spiral and magnitude, even though the direction may be expressed more appropriated by a spiral than by steps than by a straight line, or by steps than a straight line. First, let's do what any good news source does: give you nothing but opinions based on political. I guess a slip. Bitches